Welcome to The Poetry Joint, a CJSW podcast production about poems, poets, and poetics. I'm your host, Stephen Donahue. Away we go. This episode, April is National Poetry Month in Canada and the United States. The League of Canadian Poets sets its own theme each year. The League's theme for 2026 is Land and Sea. There is no particular theme to this episode, but we will try to provide a variety of poems in celebration of National Poetry Month.
Thank you, Stephen, for inviting me to read a poem for the Poetry Joint. Dear listeners, I'm so excited to be in this space. I will read a poem from my latest collection titled We Survived Until We Could Live, published by the University of Calgary Press. The particular poem I'll read now is titled Shrapnel or Pain in 5 Notes. It's told by an ex-soldier dealing with post-war memory and trauma. The poem captures the experience of some former survivors of war, and it's quite reflective of the times we're living where there are wars across different parts of the world. I invite you to listen to the poem as I read it. Shrapnel or Pain in 5 Notes. Note 1. A shrapnel of pain deep inside my chest, or maybe in my mind. Note 2. At night, a small flame inside me sears my lungs and veins. Bedsheets tangle my feet. Note 3. I have lived with diverse pain, the spasms of survivor. This is new. Note 4. Once, while peeling a soursop, I caught my wife watching like a doctor, probing my belly for tenderness. Note 5. My wife cannot know how deep the pain goes and shouldn't. She tends wounds that will not heal, and that's enough. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joan Sarro, host of The Spin Evolution on Wednesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. on CJSW, and I am going to contribute a poem to Poetry Joint for National Poetry Month. It is called Last Stop. I wrote the poem inspired by a guitar part by Richard Purvis, who is here to accompany me while I read the poem. When the last drop falls from the very last leaflet and the last train rails from the last of all stops, we are all none the wiser when the last second ticks on the very last arm of the very last clock. Take in the view, the scent, the feel of that which surrounds you now, the voice that adorns you. The past is an echo trap of who we are now. When the sun shines its bright on the matrix of iris and the shadow it casts, twist the twigs round and round. All the treasures collected on the backs of the bruised, the towers, the temples, the shrines all fall down, collapse down in a row. All is even below. The stars wink and glow tonight. The moon spins, stops round. There is nary a sound. No howls, no hounds, no night.
Flow Lake, a poem by David Zieroth. We climbed through summer towards the lake, as if the lake were all the promises we needed, climbing hard through the larkspur and the elderberry, friends ahead and friends behind, the world in order coming with us to the lake. At the switchbacks we met, the first of the strange new flowers coming through the snow as if this were the very beginning of life. Under each tree, where the snow had gone, we watched the spreading circle of spring and looked into the meadows and into the trees where each man heard inside himself words he had never heard before, until the lake, which put an end to words. 2. The mountain stands up on the broken feet of its glacier, tosses rocks, then ice down into the lake, where the water moves like the breaking of mirrors, or birds jumping into flight, ptarmigans catching on the edge of the glacial wind that sucks me out of the scrawny trees, the broken dwarves of tree line, and only the lake is approachable. At the shore, where the harmonicas and fires are already warming up, the noises of tent and pack as the mountain booms again fills the camp with silence as white and endless as the cornice that dives for the lake. This is the place to sleep, where the lake hugs the rock wall and is content to be small and green and ice 9 months of the year. Our dreams will scale the face of the mountain all night long. This is how we will connect and disappear, not falling but flying, hooked together in hand-to-hand combat with the rocks up above, the ice floes that sail like swans across the lake and past the dreamers who are stirring in the yellow dawn, tasting the stars in their coffee. 3. Coming back, we begin by forgetting. Where we are going now, there is no room for perfection. Once there was a bird to remember, the way it flew, the call it made, another time, the color of a tree. Or the young men standing all along the shore, feeling as strong and as wild in their minds as the water itself. These things are making room for the highway that is a dark line on the mountain. We are halfway back, and the loss comes down like rain. I have found another place to leave behind like a home, and only these friends will bind me to it. This smell of rock on their hands, these men in the same rain all around me, like the shy sound of wind across water. In the mid-1970s, David, also known as Dale Zieroth, was working as a Canadian parks naturalist in Kootenay National Park when he hiked on an overnight to Flow Lake with some of his Parks Canada colleagues. The poem that came out of that trip was published in his second book of poetry, Mid-River, published by the House of Anansi in 1981, and was subsequently published in his anthology, Tales from the Canadian Rockies, published by Hertig Publishers in 1984. David Zieroth currently lives in North Vancouver. He is the author of more than a dozen books of poetry, including The Fly in Autumn, which received the Governor General's Award for Poetry in 2009, and How I Joined Humanity at Last, the 1998 Dorothy Livesay Poetry Prize winner.
That last poem was Flow Lake, read by Molly Neufeld, who hosts the program Free Verse, Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 11 on CJSW. Before that, the poem Last Stop, read and written by Joan Sarro, with inspiration by accompaniment by Richard Purvis. Joan is the host of Spin Evolution, Wednesdays from 4 p.m. to 6. Starting us off was Uche Peter Umez, assistant professor in the Department of English at the U of C, reading his poem Shrapnel of Pain in 5 notes. Uche is busy teaching, writing, and reading poetry, editing compilations. Most recently edited with Rona Altro's a collection of poetry, fiction, and nonfiction titled Please Don't Interrupt. He wrote a book titled Masculinities in Nigerian Fiction, and his own poetry book, We Survived Until We Could Live. And you can probably catch him reading somewhere in Calgary over the next little while, I'm sure, if you keep your eyes out for notifications on the poetry scene. And just a quick shout out to Michael Ellsworth, who used to host the early Tuesday morning show Beat Salad, has a new gig, a program called Nightworms, which runs from 2 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. on Tuesdays. I came across this poem, which I thought applied a little bit to that time, titled The Early Morning by Hilaire Belloc. The early morning, the moon on the one hand, the dawn on the other. The moon is my sister, the dawn is my brother. The moon on my left and the dawn on my right. My brother, good morning. My sister, good night.
Hello everybody, my name is Kamal Karimi. I'm the host of Sonic Cycle every Friday morning from 10 to 11 a.m. It's a hip-hop show, and within the show I love playing lyrical hip-hop, and in many ways I think of lyrical hip-hop and poetry as very similar to each other in sharing many forms and methods for how they approach it. And for this poetry reading, I decided to choose a poem by somebody who I think bridges so well between hip-hop and poetry, and that's Saul Williams. And I decided to do a poem by Saul Williams from his first book. It's an untitled piece from his 1998 book, The Seventh Octave, and it's now kind of commonly known as Language in Zoos, and I think it's just a beautiful poem, how it's written and what it's about. So I'm going to do my best to try to do a Saul Williams reading. I could recite the grass on a hill and memorize the moon. I know the cloud forms of love by heart and have brought tears to the eye of a storm. My memory banks vaults of autumn forests and autumn river banks, and I've screamed them into sunsets that echo in earthquakes. Shadows have been my spotlight as I monologue the night in dialogue with days, soliloquies of wind and breeze applauded by sun rays. We put language in zoos to observe caged thought and toss peanuts and P-Funk at intellect, and everyone thinks these are metaphors. I speak what I see. All words and worlds are metaphors of me. My life is altered by the moon, footprints written in soil, the fountain pen of Martian men noveling human toil, and yes, the soil speaks highly of me, when earth, seeds, root, me, poet, tree, and we forest forever through recitation. Now, maybe I'm a little too serious, too little here, too matter, though I'm riddled with the reason of the sun, a stand-up comet with the audience of lungs, this body of laughter, is it with me or at me? You more or less through genders mute, and the punchline has its lifeline at its root. I'm a star, the life's the suburbs I commute, make daily runs between the sun and earthly loot, and raise my children to the height of light and truth.
Hello, my name is Logan Poland. I'm the Marketing and Development Director here at CJSW. I'm here today to read you Fear Snakes by Lorna Crozier. So why Fear Snakes? Why this poem? I would say it was the first, very formative poem I've ever came across. Up to that point, I had pretty much only read or listened to what we would call, conventional poetry, stuff with a rhyme, sonnets, set rhythm, the odd free verse. I remember reading Bob Dylan's Tarantula, and I did not like it, and that's okay. But it was the first day of the first poetry class I ever took. I walked in, sat down, the professor put on a recording of this poem, and she wanted to highlight the fact that a poem can move you, and the poem did move me. The reading was very slow. It was a video and it was quite cinematic. But ever since then, I would say I probably have read this poem probably once a month. I read quite a bit of different poetry. I quite enjoy poetry. I'm also a writer. I write in a very different style, I would say. But Lorna Crozier, and this poem in particular, I don't know, they kind of feel like home to me. Lorna is also from Swift Current. She lives in Victoria now. She's made quite a name for herself in Canadian literature. And the proximity to my extended family and just seeing how she's made it, it's very inspiring. And she's quite a funny character. I like her quite a bit. I'm going to read the poem now. Fear of Snakes. The snake can separate itself from its shadow, move on ribbons of light, taste the air, the morning and the evening, the darkness at the heart of things. I remember when my fear of snakes left for good. It fell behind me like an old skin. In swift current, the boys found a huge snake and chased me down the alleys, Larry Moen carrying it like a green torch, the others yelling, "Drop it down her back." My terror of its sliding in the runnel of my spine. Larry, the one who touched the inside of my leg on the swing, an older boy we knew we shouldn't get close to with our little dresses, our soft skin. My brother saying, "Let her go." And I crouched behind the Karaganas, watched Larry nail the snake to a telephone pole. It twisted on twin points of light, unable to crawl out of its pain, its mouth opening, the red tongue tasting its own terror. I loved it then, that snake. The boys standing there with their stupid hands dangling from their wrists, the beautiful green mouth opening, a terrible dark O no one could hear. Thank you.
Logan Poland reading Fear of Snakes by Lorna Crozier. Thank you, Logan. A new face here at the station. Just before him, Camille Karemi. Camille Karemi is the podcast producer as well here at CGSW and has been a great supporter of the Poetry Joint from its inception. He's been patient and demanding and fair. You can find out more about Saul Williams at saulwilliams.com. I see where he was 2026 nominee for Best Spoken Word Poetry Album. Interesting. So over the years, I've had the pleasure of talking to and listening to many poets. Many are accomplished in their art with speaking engagements, having books published, recipients of degrees and awards. Recently, I had a conversation with one person who loves writing and reading and listening to poetry. She is not a highly ranked poet with publishing deals and awards and the like. However, I would like to share a little bit of that conversation as part of this Poetry Month episode. Why poetry?
Well, I chose poetry because it's a specific use of language that expresses so much of what is human, like feelings, emotions, helps me to understand myself better and the world around me. I just feel it just brings me closer, everything together closer for me. It feels like a safe outlet to express my feelings. Sometimes if I'm feeling afraid, I'll write a poem. Or if I'm feeling really happy about something joyful, I'll express it in poetry.
Fair enough. When did your interest in poetry start?
I started as a child. I was mostly writing stories at that point. Probably my 30s is when I got back into poetry, found that it just fit for me. And I find I do the free verse, and it just fits for me now. I think we move along into different stages of our writing. I had little support at first, but then gradually I got into groups of like poetry organizations. I lived in Alberta for 30 years, and then I moved 5 years ago out here to Saskatchewan because my family are all here. But I really miss Alberta because there was so much more available to me in the line of poetry. I used to belong to the Stroll of Poets in Edmonton for many years. I had to drop that when I moved, and I regret it. I really miss those people. I'm more drawn to the contemplative solitude kind of simplicity. It's more of a quieter. So I just am more of a quiet, gentle type of poetry. Anyhow, I'm talking too much. Maybe.
No, that's fine. I appreciate people talking because that Means I can talk less. Would you like to read
Oh,
some of your
yeah.
poetry and we'll...
I don't know. I'll start with this one, and then we can stop and three short ones. That's all. Okay. The first one, I think I might have read this one at the Parkland Poets the other day. The Pause. I sip my morning coffee. I find motivation as I pause in the tender unknowing, an energy that touches what is not spoken, that waits at a still point, inviting peace, where seeds can grow in imagination, returning breath to presence, connecting as the morning cradles my awakening in soft awareness. Reading my poetry makes me nervous, even though I said to myself the other day, that's when I'm most comfortable reading is when I'm reading it. And yet that's all sounds odd because I find sometimes reading it back to myself out loud helps me to see where I can change a poem, like or if it could be altered in some way. Yeah.
Do you have another poem you'd like to read?
I do. I've got this one. It's called the Haven. It's called Haven. It's about the morning, but different. Okay. More Haven. The morning weaves everything I touch. I dip my pen in its fire and let it become my own. I plant my feet in its brilliance. My face bears itself to the air I trust, claiming my right to be a sensational artist of the cracks and stains along broken, steadfast earth. It's like someone opens a new book, cracks and smooths its spine into a new page. The nervous flames of my heart rove around its essence. Authorize new lines written to stir my soul.
In terms of your poetry, where do you say you journal? So I think you probably write down ideas there. Where does your poetry come from? Do you every day write poetry? Do you...
Not every day, but I find that sometimes when I'm journaling, an inspiration will come about something I've written, and sometimes the early morning awakening. I rise early, and it's still really dark when when I start writing, and usually then as I watch the morning awaken, sometimes it really. People tell me I'm crazy, but I said it inspires me. It is the morning as the sun creeps up, the sunshine. I feel awakened. I feel the awakening in my body and in my soul and in my heart. I'm really held by the beauty of things around me.
Do you have poets you like to read or poets you think inspire you?
I have read Whitman in the past quite a bit. Now I read Mary Oliver. I have a book of Mary Oliver's right over here. I could read a poem of hers for you if you want.
Sure, if you want to.
I
Go
just
ahead.
grabbed the
Yeah,
book
we've got
here.
time.
What should I start with? I'm going to start over where it opened up here. Okay. Clouds. All afternoon, sir, your ambassadors have been turning into lakes and rivers. At first, they were just clouds, like any other. Then they swelled and swirled. Then they hung very still. Then they broke open. This is, I suppose, just one of the common miracles, a transformation, not a vision, not an answer, not a proof. But I put it there, close against my heart, where the need is, and it serves the purpose. I go on, soaked through, my hair slicked back, like corn or wheat, shining and useful. That's the end of the poem.
Hey, thank you for that. That was Lauraine Saretsky from Saskatoon. I don't really have a lot of other information about Lorraine, but she was kind enough to have a conversation about her poetry and her love of poetry. Checking the website for the League of Canadian Poets and the Academy of American Poets, there are a number of events for April National Poetry Month. The Academy of American Poets has a free PDF download of a variety of poems for Poem in Your Pocket Day, which for them is April 30th. And the League of Canadian Poets has a Zoom reading April 16th that anyone can join with the poets and some of the poems they have made available for the Poem in Your Pocket Day, which for them is April 23rd. I went looking for a poem by Margaret Atwood. I wasn't able to find anything on the League of Canadian Poets website, but I did find this recording on the Academy of American Poets website.
You begin. You begin this way. This is your hand. This is your eye. That is a fish, blue and flat on the paper, almost the shape of an eye. This is your mouth. This is an O or a moon, whichever you like. This is yellow. Outside the window is the rain, green because it is summer, and beyond that the trees and then the world, which is round and has only the colors of these 9 crayons. This is the world, which is fuller and more difficult to learn than I have said. You are right to smudge it that way, with the red and then the orange. The world burns. Once you have learned these words, you will learn that there are more words than you can ever learn. The word hand floats above your hand like a small cloud over a lake. The word hand anchors your hand to this table. Your hand is a warm stone I hold between 2 words. This is your hand. These are my hands. This is the world, which is round but not flat, and has more colors than we can see. It begins, it has an end. This is what you will come back to. This is your hand.
That was the Margaret Atwood poem, You Begin. Unfortunately, we're getting around to the time where we end. Thank you to all the people that contributed. Uchi, Joan, Molly, Camille, Logan, Lorraine. We'll be back again in a month's time. We'll just end off with a long-time listener to the Poetry Joint and some recollections of his poetry experience. Happy National Poetry Month.
During the pandemic, aside from my MS and the difficulty of going out in public and attending live events, I started looking at other venues. I can remember when I did a live reading in March of 2022 for Parkland Poets, and my dog decided to misbehave at the moment that I was reading the first poem. But I'd forgotten about what they call a trigger warning. If you're reading something that might be a little bit intense, they ask you to do a trigger warning beforehand to let the audience know that they might, be freaked out. So I started my reading with a poem called Stiffness. After I'd finished reading the poem, the host was kind of aghast. I'll read the poem for you, and maybe you can understand. Stiffness. Foam bubble bath on an ass cheek evaporates when blown on, only to be replaced by the moisture of my lips upon it. Erotic, you say? Reality, if I may. 10 years from now, I'll still kiss your ass without being asked to do so. What's even more bizarre is that I'm going to like it. Foam bubble bath on a nipple evaporates when a towel is applied, only to be replaced by stiffness in its wake.
April in the Hill by Archibald Lampman. Today the world is white and fair, with sunny fields of lucid air, and waters dancing everywhere. The snow is almost gone, the noon is builded high with light, and o'er heaven's liquid height, in steady fleets, serene and white, the happy clouds go on. The channel run, the bare earth steams, and every hollow rings and gleams with jetting falls and dashing streams. The rivers burst and fill. The fields are full of little lakes, and when the romping wind awakes, the water ruffles blue and shakes, and the pines roar on the hill. The crows go by, a noisy throng, about the meadows all day long. The shore lark drops his brittle song, and up the leafless tree the nuthatch runs and nods and clings, the bluebird dips with flashing wings, the robin flutes, the sparrow sings, and the swallows float and flee. I break the spirit's cloudy bands, a wanderer in enchanted lands. I feel the sun upon my hands, and far from care and strife, the broad earth bids me forth. I rise, with lifted brow and upward eyes, I bathe my spirit in blue skies, and taste the springs of life. I feel the tumult of new birth, I awaken with the wakening earth. I match the bluebird in her mirth, and wild with wind and sun, a treasure of immortal days, I roam the glorious world with praise, the hillsides and the woodland ways, till earth and I are one. Archibald Lampman, born 1861, a member of the Canadian School of Nature Poets, died at the young age of 37. Singer-songwriter Lorna McKinnon adapted Lampman's poem titled Snow for her 1995 album To Drive the Cold Winter Away. Yes, let's drive the cold winter away.